Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now let's start with the story. I'm 30 years old, a structural engineer by trade, mostly working on skyscrapers and big commercial projects. I've been doing it for about 8 years now, and honestly, I love it. Even when the hours get ridiculous and I feel like I've been inhaling concrete dust more than air, there's something amazing about seeing a structure rise from nothing. I was married to Ella. She's 28. Or, I guess is 28, I still don't know how to refer to her anymore. Is. That's the least confusing part of this whole thing, honestly. We were married for just 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We still had unopened wedding gifts in the living room, ribbons and wrapping paper. Perfect little boxes full of hope, or whatever they're supposed to represent when she decided to blow up everything. It still doesn't feel real. Like I'm living in someone else's bad dream and just waiting to wake up. Anyway, let me rewind. Give you some background. I met Ella about 3.5 years ago. It's actually kind of a ridiculous story. We had this injured hawk show up at one of my construction sites. Damn thing got caught in some scaffolding and freaked everyone out. My site manager called the local wildlife center because what else are you supposed to do with an angry, injured bird of prey? Next thing I know, Ella shows up. I don't even know how to describe it. Muddy boots, messy hair, some old fleece vest over a faded t-shirt completely out of place with all the guys in hard hats and steel toes. But the way she handled that hawk, Jesus, she was confident, gentle, knew exactly what she was doing. Talking to it softly while she checked its wing, wrapping it with this calm, practiced ease like it wasn't a bird with talons the size of steak knives. I think I was just standing there like an idiot, watching her. After she got the hawk stabilized, she looked over at me and smiled. I said something stupid. I can't even remember what. Probably something like, "You do this often?" She laughed, kind of tilted her head, like she wasn't sure if I was flirting or just awkward. More often than you'd think. Hawks and construction sites go hand in hand, apparently. I guess they like a good view, I said. She laughed again. Are you new in town? I asked. Just moved here a few weeks ago. Actually, she said, brushing her hands off on her pants. Still figuring out where the good coffee is. Maybe I can show you around sometime. God, I remember saying that. I thought I was being smooth. It felt dumb as hell coming out of my mouth. But she looked at me, really looked, and said, yeah, I'd like that. That turned into dinner. Then more dinners. Long walks. Lazy weekends. Before I knew it, we'd been together for 3 years. 3 full years where everything felt solid. Not perfect, but solid. We had our share of dumb arguments. Of course, like whose turn it was to do the laundry or me working too late. But nothing big. Nothing that made me doubt her. She always said she understood my work. I had some huge projects happening, and she never made me feel guilty about missing a dinner or crashing early. In return, I supported her, whatever you want to call it. Mission. Calling. That woman would try to save every injured animal in a 50-mile radius if she could. At one point, we had a 3-legged raccoon living in our guest bathroom for a week. I wish I was joking. She named him Scooter. Every morning I'd hear her in there, saying, "Come on, Scooter, let's check that bandage," like she was a raccoon whisperer. But that was Ella. That was us. We wanted the same things, couple of kids eventually, a house in the suburbs, dogs. Obviously, how could we not, with her job? We even agreed on the stupid little things, like both hating cilantro and loving true crime documentaries. Looking back now, maybe things were too perfect. If that even makes sense. I mean, the wedding was exactly what Ella wanted. This fancy vineyard ceremony with string lights and flower arches and live acoustic music, the whole 9 yards. It cost me an arm and a leg. Took me almost a year to save up for it. Overtime shifts, budgeting down to the dollar, skipping nights out with my friends. But seeing her happy? God, it felt worth it. I remember standing at the altar, sweaty palms and all, and seeing her walk down the aisle in that dress, and I swear, time just kind of stopped. Her dad, this big, intimidating ex-military guy, fully tatted up and built like a tank, was actually crying. Tears. I never thought I'd see that man cry. He used to stare me down when we were dating like he was evaluating whether I could survive a hostage situation. But there he was, holding her arm like she was the most precious thing in the world and blinking back tears. My college buddies all flew, and even Kyle, my best friend, who's been buried in a mega project in Dubai for the last 2 years. He barely takes vacations, but he showed up. We were grabbing a drink at the bar the night before the wedding, just the two of us, and he kind of leaned in and said, "Caleb, you sure about this?" "What do you mean?" I asked, already knowing what he was getting at. He swirled the ice in his glass. "I don't know, man. I just noticed a couple red flags." Stuff she said. How she treated people when she thought no one was watching. I laughed it off at the time. "Come on, Kyle. You've barely seen us together. She's just stressed. It's the wedding. He shrugged, like he wasn't convinced but wasn't going to push it. All right. Just keep your eyes open, all right? Love makes people blind. Bro, don't ignore your gut. I didn't listen. I brushed him off like an idiot. You know what they say, love is blind. And it was. At least for me. The ceremony? It was beautiful. Ella had planned every little detail. I swear she had spreadsheets. There was this special wine we ordered from a vineyard we visited on vacation. She had this woman come in just to do the calligraphy on the place cards. Cost a fortune for someone to write people's names fancy, but Ella said it made the tables. My mom kept saying she'd never seen a more beautiful wedding. Like a fairy tale, she kept repeating. But now I wonder if she was just being polite, or trying to convince herself. The reception was insane in the best way. We hired this killer band that had the dance floor packed all night. Ella's cousins flew in from Australia and taught everyone this drinking game. I don't even remember the rules, but I know half the wedding party was basically down for the count the next day. Our first dance. I remember holding her close, swaying under those string lights, thinking, this is it. This is the start of forever. I felt lucky, like I had everything I'd ever wanted wrapped in one moment. And then came the honeymoon. Bali. Ella had always dreamed of going there. I busted my butt to make it happen. 6 months of overtime. Packed lunches. No extras. I saved every penny like a man on a mission. We stayed in this little villa with a private pool and jungle views. We drank coconut water straight out of coconuts, went snorkeling, hiked a volcano. Everything you'd imagine. She was glowing the whole time. Said it was the happiest she'd ever been. When we got home, everything still felt great. We were still in that floaty honeymoon phase, still calling each other husband and wife, just because we could. Still looking at our rings like they were magic. Ella even started talking about maybe trying for a baby next year. I remember her saying it casually one night as we were brushing our teeth. You think next year might be a good time to start? She asked, looking at me in the mirror with that hopeful little smile. I nodded. Yeah, I think it might be. 14 days. That's how long it lasted. Exactly 2 weeks after we got back from Bali, everything changed. I started noticing Ella acting weird. And when I say weird, I mean like a completely different person. Weird. Looking back now, there were so many red flags I ignored like a complete dumb shit. It's almost embarrassing, honestly. The first thing I noticed? She was always on her phone. Before the wedding, Ella used to get on my case about checking work emails during dinner. You're not at the office, she'd say, grabbing my phone off the table. Be present with me, Caleb. She made a whole thing about it, no screens during meals, quality time, yada yada. Then suddenly, it flipped. Now she was the one glued to her screen. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone gets texts, right? But this was different. She'd be holding her phone low under the table, typing furiously, smiling sometimes, that kind of private smile you don't mean to show. When I'd walk into a room, she'd instantly flip her phone face down or switch apps. Like clockwork. One time I asked, everything okay? She looked up, eyes wide like I'd caught her. Yeah, just texting Olivia. She's going through some stuff with, Jason. I nodded. Again? She laughed nervously and said, you know her. And like an idiot, I believed it. I actually convinced myself maybe she was planning a surprise for me, some post-wedding gift or a getaway or something sweet. My brain just didn't want to go there. Then came the late nights. Ella had always pulled long shifts at the wildlife center when there were emergencies, owl with a busted wing, injured deer hit by a car, that kind of thing. But this was different. Suddenly, she was staying really late. Every other night, it seemed like there was a new animal crisis. There's an eagle that came in with a wing fracture, she told me one night, grabbing her keys. They need someone to monitor it overnight. Don't you guys usually rotate those shifts? I asked, not accusing, just confused. Yeah, but Monica's out sick, and Travis has court-ordered stuff, she said quickly, already halfway out the door. Then another night, she said she had to stay for a fox that was hit by a car. But when I was scrolling on Instagram later, just mindlessly flipping through while eating dinner alone, I saw the Wildlife Center's post. Releasing our little survivor back into the wild this morning. Foxface Sparkles. The same fox. Released that morning. My heart sank. I stared at the screen, reread the caption, did the mental math. I even checked the timestamp, hoping maybe somehow I was wrong. But I wasn't. Still, I didn't confront her. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. I didn't want to believe what was obviously happening. To be fair, I was also slammed at work. My firm had just landed this massive contract designing a new 50-story building downtown. Structurally, it was a nightmare. High wind loads, seismic concerns, steel constraints, the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. Worst part? It was for Reed's hospital. They were expanding their trauma center. That's probably how Olivia found out Reed was back in town. She'd been over at our place one night. Ella had invited her for wine and whatever show they were obsessed with at the time, and I had the project schematics out on the kitchen table. She picked one up and said, Oh wow, this is for St. Gennaro? Didn't Reed used to work there? I nodded, distracted. Yeah, apparently he's back. She smiled this weird little flicker of something and said, huh, small world. And then Olivia started showing up more. Let me tell you about Olivia. 32. Twice divorced before 30. A new boyfriend every month, minimum. Total chaos in heels. Her Instagram bio literally says, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. That should have been all I needed to know. She and Ella got close at work, I don't even know how. Olivia's the receptionist at the wildlife center. Not a vet. Not even in wildlife rehab. Just the front desk. Something about her always rubbed me the wrong way. I kept my mouth shut, though, because Ella would just say I was being judgmental. I know she's intense, Ella told me once. But she's been through a lot. I nodded, let it go. But I should have trusted my gut. There was something off about her. Later, I found out from Jared, one of the rehab guys I used to talk shop with when I'd stop by, that Olivia had actually tried to get my number when I first started visiting the center about the Hawk situation. She was real interested, man, Jared told me. Kept asking if you were single. I remember shaking my head. Seriously? I barely even talked to her. Didn't stop her, he laughed. But I was already focused on Ella. I should have realized sooner how bitter Olivia was about the whole thing. About me and Ella, I mean. The marriage. The way things had settled down, or at least looked like they had. But I never said anything to Ella. Not once. I'd walk in and catch them whispering in the kitchen, giggling like teenagers, then snap dead silence as soon as they saw me. Like someone hit mute. One time, I heard Olivia say, you deserve to be happy. And you can't help how you feel. Then silence. I just stood in the hallway, holding my coffee, pretending I didn't hear that. Tried to ignore it. Told myself it was girl talk or venting or something that didn't involve me. But looking back, Olivia was basically pouring poison in Ella's ear 24/7. And then came that morning. I remember it exactly. Burned into my brain. I'd been up since 5 a.m., buried in structural revisions for the new hospital wing. The foundation plan was a nightmare, water table too high, weird load distribution issues. I had the plan spread out across the floor of my home office, coffee gone cold, trying to figure out how to reroute a stress line without blowing the entire cost estimate. And then Ella walks in. It's around 11 a.m. She's still in her pajamas, that faded blue pair with little crescent moons, hair a mess, eyes puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. I turned around. Hey, you okay? She didn't answer. Just walked over to the couch, sat down, and started crying. Not soft tears, ugly crying. The kind where your face scrunches up and you can barely get words out between the sobs. I thought someone had died. I got up, walked over. Ella, what's going on? She tried to speak, but it came out all broken and jumbled. She shook her head, wiping her nose on her sleeve, then finally managed, I need to tell you something. I felt my stomach drop. She took a deep breath and said, I met up with Reed a few days ago. Reed. I swear to God, everything froze right then. I heard the words, but my brain refused to make sense of them. She kept talking, eyes locked on the floor. We've been texting. For a few weeks. Olivia. She convinced me I needed to talk to him. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. Nothing physical happened, she added quickly, like that was supposed to make it okay. But he told me he still has feelings for me. He said he made a huge mistake leaving. I let out a laugh. Just one, short and bitter. And you listened? She flinched. I didn't know what to do, Caleb. I got overwhelmed. I mean, he was my college sweetheart. We were together 4 years. My voice cracked, louder than I meant. That was years ago, Ella. You're married now. To me. She was crying again, harder now, almost panicking. I know. But I felt so confused. And Olivia said, she said I needed to be honest with myself. That if I had unresolved feelings, I owed it to myself too. To what? Humiliate me? I stepped back, running my hands through my hair. Jesus, Ella. She looked up at me, her face red and wet. I needed to figure it out before I commit to this fully. Before I shut that door forever. We're already married, I said flat. The thank you cards from our wedding haven't even been sent out yet, for heaven's sake. Then came the part that really broke me. She sniffled and said like she was offering me some kind of gift. I need to be sure about us, so we don't end up divorced in 5 years when we have kids. I just sat there staring at her, probably looking like an idiot with my mouth hanging open. I couldn't think. Couldn't even move. It was like my brain short-circuited trying to process what she'd just said. And looking back now, it was all so obvious. Olivia's whole plan, I mean. She was the one who accidentally let it slip to Ella that Reed was back in town. I remember that exact moment. She made it sound like gossip. Oh, did you hear? Reed's back. He's working at the hospital now. Isn't that wild? Then, like clockwork, she'd start bringing him up, randomly talking about his posts, saying things like, look at this. He's back from Africa, doing amazing things. Classic manipulation. And Ella fell for it completely. But here's the part where it gets real, where things stopped being confusing and just became surreal. Instead of doing what Ella probably expected, begging her to stay, breaking down, promising to be a better husband, whatever fantasy Olivia coached her through, I just started laughing. Not the good kind. Not joyful. It was that hollow, kind of hysterical laugh you do when things are so screwed up you can't even believe it's happening. She looked at me like I was cracking. Maybe I was. Honestly, maybe I was. And then I don't even know what came over me. I grabbed my laptop, opened it, typed best divorce lawyer's city name into Google, and started clicking through. Right there, in front of her. She shot up off the couch. What are you doing? I didn't even look at her. Making calls. Her voice cracked. Wait, Caleb, what? I said I needed time to think, not that I wanted a divorce. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, no. What you need is to get the hell out of my house. It wasn't my proudest moment, but I was running on 2 hours of sleep, and everything was crumbling. She broke down again, sobbing harder this time. You're being so unfair, she said. You don't understand how complicated this is for me. Then she said it. Reed was my first love, she whispered. I need to know if there's still something there. I'll always wonder what if I don't explore this. And that is when I lost it. I stood up, probably louder than I should have. You know what's not complicated? I said. Marriage vows. She looked stunned, like I'd slapped her. You either meant them, I said, or you didn't. And clearly, you didn't. She shook her head, her hands up like she was defending herself. You're twisting everything. You're being controlling and unsupportive. Olivia said. She choked up. She said any man who really loved me would understand and give me the space to figure things out. Olivia. Of course she did. I didn't even respond to that. Instead, I pulled out my phone, scrolled past hundreds of pictures from our honeymoon, smiling at beaches, dinner dates, hikes, fake candids that felt like another lifetime, and found our wedding video. I held it out toward her. Watch, I said. She stared at the screen, watched her own face, her smiling, glowing face look up at me on that altar. I fast-forwarded to the part. To love, honor, and forsake all others. I paused it. Then I looked at her and asked, were you lying then? Or just lying now? She got real quiet after that. Just stood there, arms crossed, chewing on her bottom lip like she was trying to figure out her next move. Then, like flipping a switch, she tried a softer approach. Maybe we could try couples counseling? She said. I think we could work through this. Together. I stared at her. Ella, I said flatly, the only thing I need to work through is finding a good lawyer. That's when she dropped the bomb. The one that really showed me who she was underneath all the crying and confusion and space to figure things out crap. She looked down at her hands and muttered, Reed's just coming off a 36-hour shift at the hospital. He said I could come stay with him while we figure this out. I blinked. What? She didn't repeat it. She didn't have to. I could feel the blood draining from my face. You already packed? I asked. She looked away. You have bags in your car? She didn't answer again. She didn't have to. I stormed past her and yanked open the front door. Sure enough, parked in the driveway, her back seat was full. Suitcase. Overnight bag. A box labeled bathroom. I walked back inside and just stood there for a second. My hands were shaking. You were planning this? I asked. Well, I've been killing myself on that foundation project. She had the nerve to look sad, like she was the one getting betrayed. I couldn't take it. I started going through our wedding gifts, most of them still in boxes, some we hadn't even touched yet. I made 2 piles on the dining table. One for stuff she's not getting. The other, things she can have. Yeah, real mature. I know. But I wasn't trying to be mature. I was trying to breathe. Somewhere in the middle of this mess, I picked up my phone and called Kyle, the one who lives in Dubai. Hey, I said, trying to sound calm, but probably failing. I need you. He didn't even ask questions. Just said, I'm on the next flight. True bro move. Still can't believe how fast he showed up. Ella saw me hang up and said, seriously? You're being dramatic now, dragging other people into this? I turned to her, still holding a damn salad spinner. I'm being dramatic? I said. You got your ex and your toxic best friend involved in our marriage. Maybe sit this one out. The next few hours, honestly, they're a blur. Ella kept bouncing between crying, trying to explain herself, and then getting mad at me for not being more understanding. Understanding of what exactly? That my wife of 2 weeks is about to go play house with her ex and wants me to be okay with it? She kept saying stuff like, I still love you. This doesn't mean I don't care about you. And the one that really got me, you'll always be special to me. Like she was breaking up with some high school boyfriend over text, not her husband. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I told her, you have 2 choices. Either you cut all contact with Reed immediately, and maybe we try to work through this, or you leave right now, and we're done. Forever. She blinked at me. Why does it have to be so black and white? And that's when I knew. Right there. That was the moment I knew it was over. I looked at her, dead in the eyes, and said, get out. And don't come back. She tried to hug me before leaving, like she thought that would somehow fix something. The audacity. I just walked away. The sound of her car driving off is still stuck in my head. I stood at the window and watched her pull away from our so-called dream house, the one we picked out together, the one we thought we'd raise a family in. She didn't even look back. Just drove off, probably heading straight to Reed's place, while our wedding cards, most of them still unopened, sat on the kitchen counter behind me. That night, I got blackout drunk on the back patio with Kyle. He'd landed by then. True to his word, first flight out of Dubai. We didn't talk much. Just sat there drinking, saying maybe 3 words every 10 minutes, watching the night sky blur. The next morning was brutal. I was hungover as hell, slumped on the couch with a pounding headache and a stomach full of regret, trying to choke down some cold coffee while Kyle handed me aspirin like it was a lifeline. That's when the pounding started. Someone was at my front door, hammering on it like they had a warrant. That aggressive, cop-style knocking. I flinched. Kyle sat up straight. "You expecting someone?" he asked. I shook my head. "Maybe Ella forgot something," I muttered, dragging myself to the door. But it wasn't Ella. It was her dad, Miles. Let me tell you about Miles. The guy's built like a tank. 6'4" minimum. Arms covered in faded military tattoos that tell 1,000 stories you don't want to hear. He's ex-Marine, now runs some high-end security firm with contracts all over the country. A total hard. But he'd always been cool with me. Until now, I guessed. The moment I saw him standing there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, I thought, well, here it comes. I honestly braced myself for a punch. Wouldn't have blamed him. His daughter probably fed him some garbage about how I flipped out and kicked her to the curb like a monster. I opened the door slowly. "Miles," I said. "Look, He cut me off. "My daughter's an idiot," he said. Then he sniffed the air and added, "Got any coffee?" I blinked. Yeah. Yeah, come in." Kyle gave him a nod from the couch. Miles walked in like he owned the place and dropped into a chair at the kitchen table. I poured him a mug and added a splash of Jack, because it felt like that kind of morning. Kyle and I sat down with him. We didn't say much at first. Just sipped and let the silence hang there. Then Miles spoke. "She called her mom last night," he said, crying. "Said you were being cruel and unreasonable, not supporting her need to explore things with Reed." I stared at my mug. "Unbelievable." He nodded. "Her mom's eating it up. Always been close. But me? Nah, not buying it." I glanced at him. "You don't believe her?" He snorted. "Hell no. You were always solid. Worked your butt off. And Reed." He paused, swirling his mug. "Never liked that guy. Even back in college. Something about him just felt off." I looked at Kyle. He raised an eyebrow. Miles leaned back in the chair. "You know what really gets me?" he said. "That idiot cheated on Ella back then, before the whole Doctors Without Borders thing." My eyes shot up. "What?" "Yeah," he said. "Her friend told me. One of her roommates. But she begged me not to say anything. Said Ella was too fragile at the time." Kyle's mouth dropped open. "So she never knew?" Miles shook his head. "And now I'm just sitting there, hungover, heart cracked in half, realizing that my wife left me for a guy who cheated on her years ago, and she doesn't even know it. You can't make this stuff up." Miles was actually the one who recommended my divorce lawyer. We were sitting at my kitchen table the day after Ella left, the 3 of us, me, Kyle, and Miles, sipping coffee spiked with whiskey, all feeling various degrees of wrecked. Out of nowhere, Miles goes, "If you're thinking about legal, I got a guy." I looked at him, not quite believing it. "You have a divorce lawyer?" He gave a dry laugh. "Used him for a business dispute a few years ago. Real bulldog. Doesn't mess around. Name's Carl Drayton." Kyle let out a low whistle. "Of course the ex-Marine has a guy." Miles just sipped his drink and said, "He'll take care of you." And he meant it, too. Even offered to have some of his security guys go have a conversation with Reed. No joke. Tempting, I said, trying to laugh it off, even though a part of me, the darker, wounded part, was seriously considering it. "But no, thanks." "Offers on the table," Miles said, dead serious. The next few days were an absolute mess. I had to call my boss and explain everything. Not just the time off, but the fact that I was a human being going through hell and couldn't show up to manage a 60-story skyscraper like nothing happened. He actually surprised me. "Man," he said, "I get it. My first wife did something like that back in '08. Take 2 weeks paid. No pressure. The building will still be here when you're ready." I just sat there on the phone, blinking. "Thanks, Carl," I said. "Seriously. Take care of yourself," he told me. "You don't need to be up on steel beams with your head somewhere else." But the worst part? Dealing with all the shared stuff. Our house looked like a wedding exploded inside it. Gifts still unopened, thank you cards half-written, framed photos of us smiling like idiots on every wall. I found our marriage certificate buried in a pile of mail near the dining table, just sitting there like a cruel joke. I picked it up and stared at it for maybe 2 minutes before I completely lost it. Just full on, dropped to my knees, sobbing kind of breakdown. Ella's little brother Jared came by that afternoon. He works at my firm, junior engineer, and was just trying to be helpful. Poor guy. He showed up to collect some of her things. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a cardboard box. Hey man, he said. She asked me to grab a few things. Hope that's okay. I nodded. Yeah. Come in. He walked through the house quietly, picking up shoes, her yoga mat, some books, her laptop charger. I watched him from the kitchen. She's at Reed's? I asked. He paused. Yeah, been there since, you know. She okay? He looked conflicted. I guess. Honestly, she's acting different. Posting weird crap on Instagram about following your heart and living your truth. I don't know, man. It's not her. Yeah, I muttered. Doesn't sound like it. The family dynamics? Total disaster. Ella's mom was fully in her corner, saying things like, you need to give her space to figure things out. Marriage is about patience and growth. Meanwhile, Miles and Jared were both on my side. That didn't sit well in their house. Miles told me he and Ella's mom got into a screaming match over dinner. Jared said he started avoiding family meals altogether. Then Olivia, Ella's loudmouth co-worker at the wildlife center, started spreading garbage, telling people Ella left me because I was emotionally unavailable and worked too much. Real original. Suddenly, people I thought were our friends' mutual friends were unfollowing me on Instagram. Just disappearing. But here's where karma started creeping in. Remember that huge construction project I was managing? The one I'd been losing sleep over for the past 6 months? Turns out Reed's hospital, where he's now back, doing his savior complex thing, was one of our clients. I called my boss again. Carl, we've got a problem. What now? One of our stakeholders is, well, it's personal. Reed. Ella's thing. He works at the hospital. Carl went quiet for a moment. Then, say no more. I'll get you swapped off the project by tomorrow. No reason to have you dealing with that crap. Sure enough, next day, I was off it. Reed apparently threw a tantrum when he heard the news. Pitched a fit about delays and unnecessary disruptions. Boo-hoo. The financial side of things was even worse. We'd just combined our accounts after the wedding. Stupidly fast-tracked everything like we were racing towards some invisible milestone. Now I had to freeze everything and start untangling our money. Thank God we hadn't bought a house yet. We were still saving up for a down payment, so the only real asset we had was my condo, the one I bought before I even met Ella. At least that was something solid in all this chaos. Ella tried calling me a few times during all this. Left these long, rambling voicemails, her voice shaky, trying to sound hopeful, but mostly just desperate. I still care about you, Caleb, she said in one. I hope someday we can be friends. I really do. Yeah, right. Let me pencil that in right after I finished burning all our wedding photos. Miles, her dad, kept me updated on what was happening on their end. Apparently, Ella and Reed were parading around town like the perfect couple, hitting up fancy restaurants, posting all these cute, filtered pictures together, acting like she hadn't just blown up her marriage for this nonsense. But the worst part? I found out they'd been texting before our wedding. Jared discovered it by accident. He was helping Ella set up her new work iPad, and since it synced with her old messages through the family cloud account, all their conversations popped up. He saw texts from Reed going back months, some from the week before our wedding. My own brother-in-law had to be the one to tell me. I remember the call. Caleb, man, I'm sorry, Jared said, voice low. I didn't want you to find out like this, but they were messaging. Before the wedding. I didn't even know what to say. I was quiet for a moment. Thanks for telling me, Jared. I appreciate it. That was it. That was when I decided to let go and focus on myself. I threw myself back into work. Remember that skyscraper project I was working on? All those late nights at the office while Ella was off figuring out her feelings, it actually paid off. My design ended up saving the client millions in foundation costs. My boss was so impressed, he fast-tracked my promotion to senior project lead. Meanwhile, Ella's whole finding herself fantasy started falling apart. Jared kept me in the loop since we still worked together, and apparently living with Reed wasn't the romantic dream she'd imagined. Reed's a workaholic, Jared told me one day. Leaves his dirty scrubs everywhere. Still acts like a college frat boy with his doctor buddies. Honestly, it's like the same problems you had but tenfold. Katie from the Wildlife Center finally spilled what had really been going on. Turns out Olivia, the one running her mouth about me being emotionally unavailable, had been playing both sides the whole time. She was telling Ella Reed was her true love, Katie said, voice dripping with disbelief, while secretly fishing for dirt on him. Pushing Ella to leave you, and laying groundwork to go after Reed herself. I just stared at her. Katie shook her head. Real piece of work. She wanted Ella to feel the pain she felt when you chose Ella over her. I asked, how'd Ella find out? Katie's eyes narrowed. Ella caught them having lunch together. Olivia tried to play it cool when Ella confronted her about the whole lunch thing. Can you believe what that snake actually said? She looked Ella dead in the eye and went, well, you were married when you started talking to Reed, so what's the difference? I'm telling you, I laughed my butt off when I heard that. Karma? Chef's kiss. Then, something interesting happened. Katie, one of the senior vets at the Wildlife Center, reached out to me. She'd been Ella's mentor when she first started there and was totally disgusted by how everything had gone down. Katie knew firsthand how much overtime I'd been putting in, trying to pay for that damn wedding. And she couldn't stand hearing Ella tell everyone I was controlling and working too much. Katie quickly became my eyes and ears at the center. One day, she sent me a screenshot Ella, crying in the break room because Reed forgot their 1-month anniversary. I had to ask, wait, you left your husband for this guy, and now you're crying about a 1-month anniversary? Make it make sense. Katie just shook her head. I know, right? But the real turning point came when Jared told me I needed to hear something. He'd seen Ella at their parents' house when he went to pick up some of her stuff. He said she looked completely different from the sister he knew dressed head to toe in fancy designer stuff, which apparently Reed could afford. But despite the flashy clothes, she looked tired and sad. She tried to hug me, Jared said. I didn't know what to do. I laughed honestly. The nerve. So when Ella showed up at my place a bit later, I just stepped back. I asked, so, how's this whole journey of self-discovery going for you? She started crying, saying she missed me, missed our life together. Said Reed wasn't who she thought he was. You know what I did? I laughed. This is hilarious, I told her. Then I said, I've got a meeting to get to, which I didn't, and just walked away. The old me? Probably would have tried to comfort her. Maybe even considered taking her back. The new me? I went and got a protein shake, then crushed my deadlift personal record that night. And then came the call from a headhunter about this massive project in Singapore. They'd heard about my foundation design solutions and wanted me to lead their new eco-friendly skyscraper development, a 2-year contract, 7 figures, full relocation package. I took it without hesitation. But when the news got around, because people talk, Ella showed up at my office, hysterical. She was saying I couldn't leave, that she was confused about her feelings, maybe she'd made a mistake. I just looked at her and said, that sounds like a you problem, then turned right back to my blueprints. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. But oh man, it didn't end there. Apparently, one of Reed's co-workers saw Ella crying in my office and ran straight to Reed with the news. And of course, Reed being the insecure man-child, he has completely lost it. He started blowing up Ella's phone, demanding to know why she was even talking to me. Like seriously? This is the same guy who had no problem texting my wife before our wedding. But sure, bro, go off. Here's where it gets even better. While Reed was having his little meltdown over Ella talking to me, guess who was blowing up his phone? Yep, Olivia. Turns out, they'd been having lunch together pretty regularly. And by lunch, I mean sneaking off to his office whenever Ella was at work. How do I know this? Steve, the project manager who took over the hospital contract after I stepped away, kept me in the loop. He actually saw them together constantly during site meetings. Being a decent guy, Steve sent me photos of them looking way too cozy for what were supposed to be professional consultations. The same girl who helped Ella blow up our marriage was out here, making moves on her new man. You literally can't make this up. Ella found out about it the worst way. She'd planned this fancy dinner for Reed's birthday, spent an entire week cooking his favorite foods. By the way, she never cooked for me once. She even bought him some expensive watch. Then, right in the middle of dinner, Olivia drunk texts Reed saying she misses their lunch meetings and hopes Ella doesn't check his second phone. Wait, second phone. This dude had a whole separate phone just to text Olivia. Real classy. Ella apparently lost it. Stormed out of their apartment around 11 at night. Tried calling her mom who was on a cruise, then her dad, who basically told her, you made your bed. Lie in it. She called her brother Jared, but he was working late at our firm, now on my team. Just got him promoted last week. Guess who else she ended up calling? Me. At midnight. Crying about how Reed was just like all other men. How she made a huge mistake. How she never should have left. I let it go to voicemail. Sent that straight to my lawyer. The next day was pure chaos at the Wildlife Center. Ella showed up to work like nothing had happened, but Olivia was acting the same way like nothing was wrong. That didn't last long. They had this massive screaming match right there in the break room. Katie, bless her, had the presence of mind to record the whole thing on her phone. She sent it to me right away, knowing I'd need it for the divorce proceedings. The best part? Right in the middle of their fight, Reed shows up, trying to explain himself. He's all, we're just friends, Ella. You're overreacting. Then Olivia, this absolute snake, looks Ella dead in the eyes and says, at least I waited until he was single, unlike some people. I swear, I was laughing so hard I nearly choked. The Wildlife Center actually had to call security. Ella and Olivia both got written up, and Reed got escorted out. It was beautiful chaos. Like the universe was making sure I knew every dirty detail. Jared kept me updated from the family side. Miles was in on the parent side. Steve kept tabs from the hospital project, and Katie from the Wildlife Center was my eyes and ears. Everyone could see what a mess Ella had made, and no one was letting her rewrite the story. Meanwhile, I'm at my office, finalizing my Singapore contract, getting ready to peace out from this entire circus. The company even offered to pay for Kyle to come work with me, gave him a senior engineering position because, honestly, he's brilliant when he's not busy babysitting my drunk. But Ella tried some last-ditch damage control and sent me this long email about how she sees things clearly now and realizes what she threw away. She said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life, and that Reed was just a fantasy, and reality hit her hard. I replied with, "Cool story. Please direct all future communication to my lawyer." That wasn't the end of it. She even tried dragging her family into it. Her mom finally got back from that cruise and showed up at my place unannounced, going on about how young people make mistakes and how true love deserves second chances. Miles, Ella's dad, found out and was pissed. He came and got her, but not before telling me he's still planning to visit me in Singapore once I'm settled. Legend. Later, Jared told me Ella moved back in with her parents. Reed's already dating some nurse from pediatrics, and Olivia? She got fired from the Wildlife Center for creating a hostile work environment. Took them long enough, right? So my firm decided to throw this huge farewell party for me last Friday. They rented out this fancy rooftop bar downtown and invited basically everyone from the company plus some clients. Jared, Ella's brother, who works with me, helped plan it. He specifically didn't tell his family about it because, obvious reasons. But somehow Ella found out anyway. Pretty sure Olivia told her, since she's still friends with one of our receptionists. The party was actually going great at first. All my work friends were there. Even some of my college buddies showed up. I was feeling good, got my Singapore visa approved that morning. My new place there all set up, and I'm in the best shape of my life thanks to all that post-breakup gym time. Then, around 10 at night, guess who shows up? Ella. But wait, it gets better. She shows up in that dress, the one she wore on our first date. The one I always said was the moment I fell in love with her. She'd kept it all these years and decided this was the moment to bring it out again. Clearly planned this whole dramatic entrance thing. Showed up right when people were doing speeches, probably thinking it would be some romantic movie moment. Instead, security stopped her at the door because she wasn't on the list. I actually didn't even notice at first because I was deep in conversation with this really cool architect from the Singapore firm. Then Jared comes running up to me like, "Dude, Ella's here and she's making a scene." I head out to the lobby, and there's Ella, crying and trying to convince security to let her in. She sees me and just starts going off how she made a horrible mistake, how Reed meant nothing, and how she wants to come to Singapore with me. Mind you, this is happening in front of like half my coworkers who came out to watch the drama. Her mascara's running everywhere. She's clearly been drinking, and she's wearing this dress that doesn't even fit her right anymore. She's lost weight from all the stress of her own dumb decisions. Then she drops the bomb. She'd actually bought a ticket to Singapore. Like, a real plane ticket for next week. Had this whole plan about showing up at my new place and convincing me to take her back. She thought it was romantic. I thought it was straight up stalker behavior. I just looked at her and said, "You need help. Professional help." Then I went back inside to enjoy my party. But Ella wasn't done. She tried to follow me in. Security grabbed her, and she started screaming about how I never really loved her because if I did, I would forgive her one mistake. That's when Kyle stepped in. He just looked at her and said, "One mistake? You mean like texting your ex before the wedding or moving in with him 2 weeks after? Those mistakes?" Ella went dead quiet. Then started crying harder, didn't think that was even possible, saying how she was just confused and scared, how Reed manipulated her. Here's the best part. While all this was happening, guess who walks by the building? Reed. With a pediatric nurse he's apparently dating now. He sees Ella having her meltdown in that old dress, looks super uncomfortable, and just keeps walking, doesn't even acknowledge her. The look on Ella's face when she saw them together. I almost felt bad for her. Security finally convinced her to leave, but not before she tried to hand me this letter she'd written. I didn't take it. She left it on the ground, and Kyle picked it up after she left. We read it later that night when we were drunk. Holy hell, it was pages of her basically rewriting our entire relationship history to make herself the victim. After she left, the party actually got way better. Everyone was buying me drinks, telling me I dodged a bullet. The architect from Singapore, Sabrina, because irony is fun, gave me her number and said she'd show me around when I get there. I found out later that Ella went to Reed's place after leaving the party. Nurse girl answered the door. That did not go well, apparently. Last I heard, Ella's in therapy now. Good for her, I guess. Too little, too late though. A couple of days ago, I got ready to head to the airport. Had everything packed, said goodbye to my parents, got my place ready for the renters, was feeling pretty good about everything. Then Ella pulled her final stunt. Quick backstory, I had a 6 a.m. flight to Singapore with a connection in Dubai, where Kyle lives. My parents and Jared were supposed to drive me to the airport. Simple plan, right? Ella had other ideas. I get to the airport at like 4 in the morning, bleary-eyed, ready to check in. And guess who's standing right there at the counter? Ella, with luggage. This girl really thought she was going to pull some romantic comedy airport scene. She'd bought a ticket to Dubai. Not even Singapore, just Dubai, because that's all she could afford, I guess. And was planning to what? Convince me to take her back mid-flight? Follow me to Singapore? Honestly, I'm still not sure what her plan was. The best part, she brought her dad, Miles, thinking he'd help convince me. But Miles' absolute legend that he is was actually there to stop her. He'd found out about her plan from Jared and came to drag her, but home if needed. Ella spots me and starts in with this rehearsed speech about how love means fighting for what matters and how she won't let me go without trying one last time. Meanwhile, Miles is standing right behind her looking like he wants to disown her. Honestly, can't blame him. Then she pulls out this photo album. It's full of pictures from our relationship, our wedding, everything. She must have spent days putting it together. She actually thought this would change my mind, that I'd see some old photos and forget about her destroying our marriage. I just walked around her and checked in. She starts crying, saying she'll prove her love by following me to Singapore if she has to. That's when Miles finally stepped in. He grabs her suitcase and goes, "The only place you're following anyone is back home. You're embarrassing yourself. And more importantly, you're embarrassing me." I've never seen Ella shut up so fast. While this whole thing is going down, guess who's at the airport? Sabrina, the architect from Singapore, was on my flight because she'd been in town for the project handover. She walks up, gives me this big hug, and asks if I'm ready for our dinner plans in Singapore later this week. The look on Ella's face? Priceless. I think her brain short-circuited trying to process that I was actually moving on. She starts this weird laugh-crying thing and says, "You're already dating?" I thought what we had was special. I finally had enough. I looked Ella dead in the eyes and said something I'd been wanting to say for months. What we had was special, I told her, and you traded it for a fantasy with a guy who's already moved on to someone else. That's on you, not me. Miles practically had to drag her out of the airport after that. The last thing I heard was her crying about how I was being cruel by moving on. The irony of that statement? Just wow. The flight? Honestly, it was amazing. I got bumped to first class, had some drinks with Sabrina, and we talked about architecture and life. Turns out we have a lot in common. She's brilliant, driven, and most importantly single. We're having dinner tomorrow. I landed in Singapore a few hours ago. My new place is insane. The view of the whole city, a private pool, it's everything I wanted. Just got a text from Miles. Ella's finally agreed to get serious about therapy. She moved back home, quit her job at the wildlife center, too much drama with Olivia still hanging around, and is apparently working on herself. Good for her, I guess. Reed? Last I heard, he's engaged to the nurse. It's been like 2 months, but sure, that'll work out great. And Olivia? I'm pretty sure she got fired from the wildlife center and is now working at some sketchy private zoo. Karma's funny like that. I'm sitting here, looking out at the Singapore skyline right now and feeling pretty good about life. Tomorrow I start work on the biggest project of my career. Next weekend, I have a date with a gorgeous architect. My best friend and Ella's brother, who's honestly more my brother now, are joining me here soon. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you lead you to the best places. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.